Hello, everybody. Welcome to another MHTV. We're really pleased to have you with us tonight, and we have a fantastic group of guests. If you look at their backgrounds, you can see who they are. It's the Philippine Nurses Association with us tonight. So we really want to hear from you and any comments you have. And so I'll just hand over before I get to introducing people to Vanessa so that she can tell you how you can join in with us tonight.
Thank you, Nicky. Hi, everyone. As Nicky says, tonight we're joined by the Philippine Nurses Association UK. I'll hand over in a minute to Nicky and our guest to introduce themselves, but we're hoping you'll join the conversation tonight. For regular guests, you'll know that if you go on to Twitter, now called X, and look up MHTV as a hashtag, you'll see the conversation there. We'd love you to ask questions and comments, and I'll be monitoring that and feeding that into the conversation. If you prefer Facebook, head over to Facebook and go on to the Unite MHNA Facebook page, and the feed will pop up there. You can follow the live stream. And again, I'll be looking in the comments box. We'd love you to ask questions, join in the conversation, and I'll hand back over to Nicky.
Okay, so let's get started with introducing our guests. Oliver, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Nicky, and MHTV, kind of like inviting me again. This is my second time coming and joining the group, but like this time representing the Philippine Nurses Association UK. So my name is Oliver Soriano. Clinically, I'm currently working as the Executive Chief Nurse Officer for Lancashire and South Cumbria NHS Foundation Trust. And also in my charity work, I'm the president of the Philippine Nursing Association UK.
Thank you. Cielito?
Hello. Hello, my name is Cielito Caneja. I'm currently specialist respiratory practitioner by clinical practice and also research lead of the Croydon Health Services, the Integrated Care Service, and a research postgraduate of Imperial College London. And on my charity work, I'm one of the committees of Philippine Nurses Association UK.
Fantastic. And last but definitely not least, Dennis.
I don't know what to say now. There's heavy titles, aren't they? Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon or morning, wherever you may be watching. My name is Dennis Singson. I am based in Sussex. I'm mental health and general nurse in profession, currently working clinically as head of mental health for a surgery, PCN in East Sussex, and connected with Philippine Nurses Association as the current vice president. Oliver sidekick.
I like that. That's a good title. So tell us a little bit about how this came about and what was the need for it and what are you guys trying to work towards?
I think I'll probably start and my colleagues will actually join in. So Philippine Nursing Association UK was founded in 2003. The founder is Mr. Michael Duque, also a nurse. I think at that time, the need for it was more of like a social gathering compared to like what an association, the same as in the Philippines was, where it's specifically for professional. I think the resurgence of the Philippine Nursing Association was felt more in 2020, specifically during COVID. As everyone would probably know, that there was a lot of like Filipino nurses and healthcare workers who started kind of like being affected by COVID. So there was a call for us to kind of like have the resurgence of the Philippine Nursing Association UK. Thus, the three of us were brought in to kind of like help and support and make this association to be the voice of the Filipino healthcare community, but equally to kind of like have that belongingness amongst the different regions in the UK, because we felt that like we have been working so long. I would say probably I've been working here in the UK for the past 26 years. I didn't even know that there are other Filipino nurses working in another like hospital. I just always felt that like I was on my own. So it was a commitment to kind of like have an association that you feel belong, have a commitment that you know that you've got a voice that you can actually, that can support you in your challenges. So that was the need of why the PNA UK was actually brought into, I would say, surface again, but this time in a stronger voice, in a stronger way of kind of like letting other know letting others know who the who Filipinos are. So that's a start. But like I know my colleagues will be able to say like what is it that we've been doing for the past couple of years now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can add to that. As Oliver was saying, it came out the pandemic reinvigorated. But what the best thing that came out to it is, like Oliver, I felt I was alone. I was on my own. I have my own life, and yeah, I love what I do. Then I see the younger generations, and there are thousands of Filipinos coming over, and it became an opportunity to actually. It's an eye opener that there's so many Filipinos in UK. Comparing to US, every Filipino nurses would like to go to US or Middle East, which, by the way, I came from Middle East, and my target was United States because my family is in US. Just my husband and I here in UK. But I found NHS and stayed longest in the NHS in my whole career. With the Philippine Nurses Association UK, we managed to find each other's strength, camaraderie. We actually find our brothers and sisters in the field, not just as a mentor. We learn from each other, not just from the most senior colleague, but more importantly to the younger generations that's coming in. Yeah.
Dennis, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, just wanted to say, really, I know the pandemic and the lockdown had been really, um, what could be a nice word to describe it? Really bad for all of us. But I think one of the legacy for the pandemic and the lockdown for me is meeting all these, like-minded Filipinos. I never knew Cielito and Oliver and all the other PNA UK members and core committee members before the pandemic. And face to face, I think we only met 2 years later. We were only just meeting up online in venues like this, having webinars and offering support to a lot of people. So yeah, so one of the legacies of the lockdown is the PNA UK being resurrected and reinvigorated in 2020. And just to let people know that we're here if they need us, and that we can lean on each other during the worst, I guess, the most difficult part and era of our nursing career in the UK, most especially.
Can you guys speak a little bit more about maybe the impact of COVID? Because I think most people know, but I think already we've got your younger students coming through who maybe weren't that aware or active during COVID, actually what was going on for your communities.
Shall I start?
Carry on.
Yeah, I'm a respiratory nurse specialist by background. And the pandemic, I would say, it brought the best of humanity, but it also brought the other side of the humanity. It's during the pandemic, that's when I realized how the healthcare professionals and the public work together in unity. It's after the pandemic and when we're going back to normal, when we have to revive the economy, that feels like we're going our ways. And, you can see that human need again to be the best of the best and self-focus. I'm not saying self-love is not important, but at that time, during the peak of the pandemic, it may be difficult, but I felt there was so much unity in healthcare, in people, in the public. Well, everyone tried to survive with the toilet rolls, tissues that we all have to. And when we go out after our ruling shift from the red zone, because I was in the red zone, I've led clinical research trials for COVID antiviral studies. And when you go home, there's nothing to eat. That said, it's also people and the public, like Philippine Nurses Association UK, came to support. I was in the most elite place in the country, and we were offered 5-star hotels, would you believe it, that I cannot afford, just because there's no place to, cannot go home. You cannot go home. My husband and I, although my husband is very fit, but my husband, I'm anxious that would bring the virus home. So I have to stay in a hotel while dealing with the pandemic. And being a respiratory clinician, we are expected that we know what we're dealing with. But the truth is, we like our team, we rely on each other. And at that time, the whole team was separated. We all lead our own group that are non-respiratory. Mental health nurses, I got my two mental health nurses, pediatric nurses. Is it okay to share here? But if you're I have a colleague who was a pediatric nurse and has to deal with adult COVID-19 patients, and the patients has been shouting at her, and she came to me and cried. For me, as a respiratory clinician, I would say, I would be saying to the patient, I'm happy that you can talk and speak incomplete sentences and yell because I know he can breathe. But
Most positive outlook I've ever heard on that. Well done.
because if you cannot breathe, you cannot speak.
Yeah.
But it's a different, and that's when I realized it's different in pediatric. It's the parents that yell at them, not the babies. And I have to comfort her. But when I went home, I went to the hotel. There's no one there, obviously. But my mental health nurse colleague came to me and asked me how I am. That question, how are you? Because everyone's coming to me, and she asked, how are you? Then we came up to talk that she was there supporting us, the respiratory team. And her dad just passed away of COVID in the nursing home and cannot be with him. So the mental health nurse came to us, how am I? And she's the one who's grieving and not able to see the father. So we found strength to each other. So not because I'm in respiratory, we were the strength. I found strength to my colleagues too. My pediatric colleagues found strength to me. I found strength to my mental health colleagues. So yeah, we found each other.
It's a really hopeful story, isn't it? In a very dark and difficult time. And I think it brings out a couple of things as well that maybe people don't always expect, because all groups have like stereotypes about them, don't they? All groups have shorthand ways that people imagine things. And you're talking about, tremendous sacrifice, particularly in your community, that I think was slightly recognized, but maybe is getting a little bit forgotten. And I don't think that it should be. But also you're talking about, your research expertise, you're talking about your clinical nurse leadership, and I think sometimes people don't always see those two things together. I wonder if any of you guys wanted to comment on that.
Should I just comment about leadership? Because it will be touching something about COVID still, but like I think there was a balance at that stage that, like, first identified healthcare worker that actually died from COVID was actually a Filipino, and then people were asking, but why? Because we were seeing numbers increasing and increasing. It's just like, is that the reason because Filipinos specifically are very meek? They're not able to actually challenge, because like they're being asked to go to the red zone and they cannot actually say, no, I'm not going there anymore. I think people learn, and that's why I think in this process, you also have to look for allies. And that's when Dame Ruth May actually called in, I think this was like in May 2020. She asked for like the presence of senior Filipino leaders to kind of like come together and say, what is it that we can actually do? And Dame Ruth May asked, what is it that the NHS can actually do? And one of that is giving the power for the PNA UK to kind of like be the voice so that we can be represented. So I think fast forward from the time that it happened, now we've got a seat into Dame Ruth May's ethnic minority advisory group that meets every 3 months. That's part of the leadership where I actually sit in to kind of like discuss the challenges, the issues that we've got as international nurses working here in the UK. I think that you take the opportunity where it is. but like make that opportunity to kind of like support others, because like often what we find in leadership is like either you do it for yourself or you do it because you know that's the right thing to do, not only for yourself but also for your community. And I think that's what PNA UK have actually strived to do more. Our link with the Philippine Embassy, our link with our International Nursing Midwifery Associations, our link with FNF, or the Florence Nightingale Foundation, has strengthened throughout the period of time that we've been here. So I think leadership, in a way, there's a lot. We're just receiving a lot of tweet, Nikki, that like a lot of our members are actually listening at the moment, and they will know very well that like part of that leadership is like bringing them up to be the leader that they are. Because at the moment, you know, like for us to actually be felt the presence of the Filipino leaders, like we need to build them and create them and make them thrive in the work that they're doing. So I'll stop there because like I know Dennis would like to actually add something to that.
Or do I? No. I've, there were so many things that you mentioned that I wanted to echo because it also resonates with me. You, Nikki, and Oli, you both mentioned about support that we receive from other people, and now Shella also mentioned that earlier. With the resurgence as well of a lot of nursing and midwifery associations in the last few years. I think during the onset of the pandemic, there were about 4 or 5 of us, but there's 25 now. And also over the last 2 or 3 years, we have been regularly communicating with each other, supporting each other. Oliver also mentioned the support that the INMAS, International Nurses and Midwifery Associations, had been receiving from the from NHS England through our CNO, and also from Florence Nightingale Foundation had been really, really invaluable. That allowed us to support not just those international educated nurses who have been here for a long time. I mean, I have been here for the last 25 years now.
Yeah.
And I've never done anything like this prior to the pandemic. So it gives us a lot of comfort and warmth that we are able to support other people, and most especially those who are newly arrived nurses. You know, it's not easy leaving your family behind and adjusting to a cold and gray and COVID laden England
Yeah.
without
Well, you're not
PPE.
selling it to me. I wouldn't move here.
No, we've come out from it now, Nikki. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, okay.
No, it's just that, during those really dreary years, well, I think we had about a year and a half of it, wasn't it? I mean, we're also questioning why there are more Filipino nurses dying in the UK compared to Filipino healthcare workers dying in the Philippines. What is going on? So, yeah, so it drove us, not just Philippine Nurses Association, but other senior Filipino nursing leaders to rally together and support each other and help each other and welcome newly arrived nurses, because believe it or not, even during the pandemic, there were still a lot of Filipino nurses arriving from the Philippines and still coming here to do what we are meant to do. We have always thought and believed that nursing is not just a way to earn a living. It's not just a profession for us. It's your calling. It's your vocation.
Yeah.
It's your passion. That's always been inculcated in our minds from being from family members, and even during the 4 years baccalaureate nursing studies that we've been doing. So we qualify having all those qualities and vision to serve others.
Can I just add with
Of
that?
course.
With what Dennis just said, it reminds me in the Philippines, if a family got a nurse, one nurse or two, oh, that's my daughter, she's a nurse. That's my niece, she's a nurse. You go to every family in the Philippines and they take pride of nurses. They really take pride of being a nurse. Even if you're just only beginning your nursing studies as in first year, oh, that will be my nurse. So everyone takes pride of the profession. It's not only a means of livelihood. It's actually a very well respected and honest profession in the Philippines. They look so highly of you as an individual, as a person. So yeah, actually they call you mom, or either you're a nurse in the hospital or you're an educator, or even if you go to the community and field. If I go to the farm, I go home, I still got lots of fruits that they come to me. That's our nurse.
Yeah.
From people I don't know. Yeah, that's how precious it is nursing in the Philippines. The
And it sounds-
nursing I know.
Yeah. And it sounds like maybe when people are coming into kind of UK environments, that experience, it can be a little bit different. So what are the, I mean, we've talked about kind of COVID overview, but what are the particular challenges that you think that people coming in from the Philippines, just arriving in the NHS, for example, what are they facing?
I
Don't know
think
where to
the first
start.
ones, yeah, where do you I mean, just thinking back as to how it was like 25 years ago, it's homesickness really.
Yeah.
And as you know, humans and people are it's intrinsic in us to want to belong in a community. I mean, I think it's a good thing that some of us Filipino international nurses arrive here as a group of people.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know each other from the Philippines, as soon as you're bundled up in the airport and arrive in the country together, the almost, whether you like it or not, becomes your family here in the UK. And it grows as you continue meeting a lot of people. And that's also one of the really good things about belonging to PNA UK, because you know, Oliver might be living in Lancaster now, 10 hours away, but he is my family now.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't know him 5 years ago, which is, yeah.
Likewise, yeah, likewise. These two, they had, compared to many others I've met long before pandemic, these two has picked me up at the most difficult time of my profession. So would you believe that a respiratory nurse would become a mental health instructor? It's the influence of these two. And I did that for myself. Then I realized, oh, it's useful to everyone.
Yeah.
That's what it's
Yeah.
useful to everyone. It
You've
makes
got
it,
us to blame for that.
you got to blame for
It
that.
did
but-
feel like that.
Yeah, but I think the additional challenge that I think like it's still happening now, kind of like, aside from coming into a different environment, coming to a different clinical environment, the changes that you have to actually adapt and adjust on the workplace that you've got. I think it's building that relationship, because often, when we first came in, most of us been here for like more than 20 years. There were no other Filipinos. So, like, you have to actually bond, and you have to actually like create that family amongst the people that you work with. I always say this to the people that I work with, that like overall we spend more time as nurses working in the wards or more working with our team compared to like really living our life in with our family. So that's one of the kind of like challenges, in how you build that relationship, how you build that respect, that trust with each other. And along the way, kind of like you build your resilience. I think one of the work that we've done as PNA UK or association, and until now we're doing that, is to kind of like do and facilitate that pastoral welcome to our nurses who are just arriving here in the UK, overall across the different parts of the UK. Well, specifically in England, because I'll start plugging now. Kind of like across England, we do have a lot of like ambassadors now, who are, when at the time that they just started or they've been in the trust for a while, they've now become the one who kind of like represents PNA UK to welcome the newly arrived nurses, to make them feel belong, to make them
Yeah, it's
feel
so
part of the
important.
family. So I think the plugging bit that I'm gonna say is kind of like, we have now kind of like mobilized our family in Wales. So we will soon be kind of like doing our PNA UK Wales branch
This weekend.
this weekend. Yes, and then we've got kind of like ambassadors in Liverpool, here in Lancaster, in Blackpool. We've got connections now in Scotland. So I think from the little work that we've started 3 years ago, even though I will say since 2003, it has grown on a community of kind of like role modeling of what right is, what kindness is. As a charity organization, all of us are not being paid to do this, but because this is part, as what Dennis said, it becomes part of our devotion, that we want to make it right for our colleagues, because this is one of the things that the NHS has to actually remember. It's not about recruitment, it's about retention.
Yes.
And this is the
Absolutely.
contribution that as an association that we're doing to kind of like make them belong so that they stay in the NHS. And that's one of the things that like we've been, we're very passionate about, that like we love the NHS. But like the NHS trust or organization has to listen to us so that like they can support us supporting their staff. So I think the challenges is always there, but like I always believe, I think like having a platform where you can actually feel belong is very, very important.
And I just add one of the challenge bringing on from Oliver. One specific challenge that we address in pastoral care is making sure that our new arrived nurses, internationally educated nurses, are aware of the community, the lifestyle in UK. And that comes with communication. The English language may be English language. I speak for myself. When I first joined, I was American. My accent was very American. I was what are you talking about? And so until you learn how to speak the proper language, the English language, that I realized there are more different accents around UK.
Horrendous.
So,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So that alone can be challenging. And when you arrive, what is she saying? What is she saying? So you got the camera. Don't worry. You tend to translate an English to an English. So I know that maybe sound strange for others, but that's our journey. And I like writing, I like speaking up. But then I would actually say that when I was in the Philippines, I speak good English. When I come here, I was American English. But I hope I can communicate well now.
Yeah, but it's a really important thing that you're saying, isn't it? Because, I can't imagine how it must be to be so prepared and then turn up and realize that you're dealing with someone with a really strong regional accent. You haven't got a clue what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I think you can only really ask someone to repeat themselves 3 times before it gets awkward. Like, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Can we go to Vanessa briefly so that she can bring some voices in and then come back and look at celebrating the contribution you guys are making?
Yeah, well, I think on that point, celebrating the contribution, we've got a huge amount of comments from people that are just basically offering support. Jan Oriola talking about you being trailblazers. Na Grace, proud to be a member of PNA. Kier Dungo, PNA UK leaders. Loud and proud. Flying. We've got Na Grace is proud to be an ambassador here in Wales.
Oh, well done.
Hi, Grace.
Yeah, you've got a huge amount of support. And then some questions. So we've got an anonymous one here that says,
Always, it's a bit scary when they don't want to be identified, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a scary question. I'm going to pass it by, but yeah, there's Oliver got a fair bit of press attention for being the first Filipino executive chief nurse appointed in the NHS. Why does he think his appointment was important, and do the other guests have any thoughts on this?
Shall I know Oliver. I would like to speak on behalf.
Yeah.
But the appointment of Oliver is historical. The appointment of Oliver, they may forget Oliver, but the appointments of the chief nursing officer, first Filipino chief nursing officer in the country, and one and only at the moment, prove that we can do it. Prove that it's possible in this lifetime, to quote Dennis. I need to reference that because he wrote that before. But it is possible in this lifetime, that it is possible that you may come a long way. Whatever difficulty you are undergoing at the moment, you're either a new arrived nurse that's reviewing for your OSCE, you have a pathway. It's possible. It's realistic. Be inspired. It's you just don't know. I speak like this because when you reach a senior stage of your career, you may be happy and content. But what Oliver did to me personally, it's made me stimulated. It made me spark again. It made me think again. And the one thing I like with myself is when I'm stimulated, because that's when all ideas comes in. That's when everything is possible. And if the appointment of Oliver Soriano as the first chief nursing officer, Filipino and one and only in the country, could influence someone like me, that I would say I had my own fair share of his stories and in clinical practice and in research. I'm hoping that everyone can be inspired from just from the Philippines to whatever level you are now. You don't have to be a beginner. You can only be a senior nurse and still look up to and say, thank God it's possible. It happened.
Yeah, we won't let Oliver talk. I'll talk for him as well.
Yeah.
And how his ascension as a CNO affected not only me but the rest of the Filipino nursing community here in the UK. I think for those who aren't aware, there's about 35,000 Filipinos working in the NHS now. So it's a huge amount of Filipinos everywhere. So if there's any nurse or anyone here working in the NHS who hasn't met or worked with a Filipino, I'll ask where you're working at. Because I, I think that's a, where have you been hiding? And I think for the 35,000 Filipinos and boldly speaking on their behalf, it's almost like Oliver being that shining beacon, not just the shining forehead, Ollie, this shining beacon of just like what Cielito said, it's possible. We can do it if you really want to do it. I mean, I think I also mentioned it in the pre-meet earlier. I think the nursing community from the Philippines has always been really described as really kind, always smiling, very welcoming, competent on the bedside, but not necessarily seen in the past as a leader because of how friendly and how nice we can be. And Shalita mentioned earlier as well, it is almost like a disadvantage for a Filipino to be nice, friendly, and welcoming because no one will take you seriously. I remember being told off by some of my supervisors before, stop smiling. Your band fives are looking at you and you keep on smiling. I said, what's wrong with that? You can be a leader and be nice and welcoming and
Yes.
friendly and accommodating. And Oliver is a testament to that. I'll
Yeah.
shut up now and let Oli speak.
No, I'll answer it with 3 points. It's like
Good luck, Ollie.
I'm feeling Nicky that that program. This is your life. It's like what's happened here?
Yeah, that's why we need to move on. You're not allowed
No,
to
no, no.
speak.
No, I'm gonna speak. No, I think there's 3 things. Why it's important. It's like first and foremost, it's not just about the number. Take away the title. Is how do we lift people up while we go up? I think that's very important for us as an association, for an individual, for our profession, because often we always think that we're just there. I think the appointment is very important because as what my colleagues have just said, with Shelo and Dennis, it is a testament that anyone can do it. Every time that I go on a stage to actually talk about my journey, I always says look, I'm as just the same as you are when you started, but the hope that it brings, it's not me, but it's the journey that anyone can do it. The second thing that I just want to emphasize is I managed to actually get into this. It's because of the people who has helped me, supported me, believed in me. So I think you're gonna say this later on, Nicky. My call to action, I always say, look for that ally who will believe in you, to support you, to take you to that next level. Because I will not be able to actually get in there because this is one of the things that we've highlighted many times in many speaking engagement. It's about the imposter syndrome. You always think can I actually do it? Or is it really me who can actually do it? But you've got that one ally who will be able to tap in your shoulders, go on, I'm in your back, you can actually do it. So there are people who were instrumental, aside from my PNA UK family, who were instrumental to kind of like allow me to believe in myself. And that's one important thing that we remember, that like here in the UK, there's always a challenge, there's always a competition. It's like, how do you find that ally to support you? And I think the third thing that I just want to actually share is like through coaching, through mentoring, through sponsorship, I've learned so much from my colleagues who've actually helped me where I am. And that's one of the things that PNA UK actually promote, is like we as an association has been helping each other through coaching, through, you know, preparing for interviews, through prep in mock interviews. So we've been doing that a lot for the past couple of years now. And I, one of the things, I think this is what I'm going to say as our legacy as the leaders at the moment of PNA UK, because there will be other leaders coming in, is that we have brought a lot of our colleagues to their next kind of like level of profession. Before, it took me, I always say this, it took me almost kind of like 8 years to become a band 6. Nowadays, the people that are in our association, within 2 years, they're starting to get up to that ladder. So I think it is important having that leadership or having that appointment. I'm not saying that because I've got into that position, but what I'm saying is like, there are ways to get into that, because no way, I didn't even know that like there's a pathway, but like until I've actually gone through it, you know. But like through the strength of my PNA UK family, my husband, I think like there are people who were able to kind of like believe in, you know, make you believe that you can actually do the things that you can actually do.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, you're talking about how important it is for representation, so that people can know they can lead in their own ways. It's really important for other leaders to see that leadership doesn't have to be poisonous or unkind or difficult. That's not leadership. That's burnout at a high level. It's not the same thing. And actually to see, you know, the range of different people nursing for themselves, people leading from themselves is so important. I'm a bit aware we've only actually done one question. Vanessa, we better
Whoever's that anonymous one, he or she did a good question.
It was a good question.
We covered a lot of themes though, didn't we, in that question, I have to say. So another question is, what can organisations do, and we have touched on this already, to support international nurses as they enter into UK nursing?
I think, as mentioned by Oliver as earlier, we've come with the pastoral care services that's already also supported by the NHS England and Florence Nightingale Foundation. But prior to this, we as PNA UK or the IMNA, the International Nursing Midwifery Associations, they're just volunteering the services until those small acts became validated, and the bigger organizations, associations such as NHSEI and Florence Nightingale came and support. But with or without the support, it's a voluntary service that we provide. Pastoral care, the meet and greet with our new nurses, and also the webinars that we do provide for our nursing colleagues who may not necessarily be in UK but intend to come to UK as well, or still in the Philippines or maybe in the other sides of the world. It's making them aware of the culture in UK outside the healthcare. So the community life that you have, and also what the tube is, all those, the transportations, GPs. So I got to say, when I got, my husband says, what are your main duties for an interview? And says, honey, he's asking for my GP. You mean general practitioner? No, main duty. It's duty, not GP. So you would see that those kinds of differences and trying to understand each other and not misinterpret each other. So we have overcome those 20 years ago. I have to say that, clear the age, 20 years ago without any support. But now with the Philippine Nurses Association UK, we have to say and actually raise awareness. We've raised awareness. We try to answer questions. We made them fully culture aware of what life in UK is, not only in the hospital.
Can I just add something? I know the name is the Philippine Nursing Association UK. I just want to emphasize that, like, as an association, it's not just purely for nurses now, we do have midwives, we do have radiographers, we do have kind of like allied health practitioners, we do have nursing associates or healthcare support workers, people working in private, people working in NHS. I think the association has grown exponentially to kind of like cover as many international nurses. And the one thing I think it's not just focusing on the Philippines, because like we know very well that like if we're gonna go and work in the NHS, you'll be working with a multi kind of like um, diverse culture. And the work that we're doing is that like there are some kind of like, let's say for example, newly arrived nurses from Kerala in South India, who didn't know anything about like international the INMAS. They will tend to actually say, oh, I've heard that you've got PNA UK. And I think it's our opportunity as well to support those individuals to kind of like say, do you know that there's this British Indian Nursing Association, or do you know that there's this, Caribbean Nursing Midwifery Association? I think the more that we grow and grow and grow these different diaspora networks, the importance of that is kind of like, it's not just solely for our community, but it's the community of the global majority. And that's what we're trying to actually do. That the help is very bespoke, and sometimes it differs of like one section of the patch. For example, in Cornwall, when we did our like meet and greet, theirs is more kind of like a social event. They want to actually have that like community. When we went to the Hull kind of like region of our association, they want it to be very kind of like formal. It was more about like conference, it's about education. So I think the help and support can be, it's
Tailored.
factored in, tailored in, that's the word, tailored to what the individual wants. So the thing is like, we might not have the answer or the solution to it, but the thing is like, we will know who we can tap in to help us with that.
But you're kind of really raising the bar, aren't you, really? I mean, trusts who want to keep hold of nurses should be doing this kind of work in terms of like supporting and recognizing and understanding the sacrifices that people are making coming so far from home to come work in a place that's not always very grateful. I think it's amazing the work that you're doing, and the fact that you're doing it voluntarily. Other things that people can do to help and support you, obviously spread the word. Anything else?
No, I think, sorry, I'm gonna say this quickly, but like our managers are, like my CEO, my board, they are aware of the work that I'm doing. So they support me to kind of continue this. And I think like Dennis and Shalu will say on their behalf, but like it's important that we make them aware so that like they can support us to continue what we're doing.
Can I sorry, Nicky. Can I sorry, Dennis, but just before I forget it, can I just also, as much as we speak about community, I would also like to everybody be aware that in addition to that social cultural factor, academically or scientifically or clinically, we are there as a support. We become a mentor to our colleagues who are undergoing process for their career, or also doing their thesis or doing any courses, educations in a way of or another that we manage not only in community life outside the hospital, but also in excelling in our profession, in our career. So either that's research, that's education, that's management or clinical. So we were there for them. The community is something that's not provided inside the hospital, but we are also there for whatever provided in the hospital or in the university.
Thank you. Dennis, were you going to say something? Go on.
Might be out of topic, but I just thought I needed to point out and highlight as well with our host today being Mental Health TV, with Philippine Nurses Association. In the last couple of years, we keep on saying couple of years, but we've actually been doing this for almost 4 years now. We have trained almost 50 mental health first aiders. I think for those who do not know, Oliver and I are working in mental health services, or are proud mental health nurses, which is almost a rarity in Filipino nurses as well. I think I mentioned 35,000 earlier. There's probably what 34,750 general nurses, and just a small fraction of those are mental health nurses. And we've spent a lot of time discussing how COVID affected us earlier. I mean, we all know that the first few months of COVID, the focus had mostly been on the physical health effects of it, to all of us, but not realizing later on, and even up to now. I mean, I work in the community, I work in GP surgeries, and the amount of people that I see on a regular basis whose mental health difficulties started during the pandemic. And I think that's also one of the legacies of the last few years for PNA UK, because we were able to train mental health first aiders and in a way increase their level of competence and confidence in dealing with people, colleagues, and even family and the community in handling and managing people with mental health difficulties.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at the time and it's got away from us, unsurprisingly, I think.
We didn't
let me
even
just-
let you talk a lot, did we?
I quite like a good lesson, so it's handy.
You are a very good listener.
I'm very interested. But I think it's just amazing the work that you're doing. We are going to have to come to an end there, so maybe we're going to in the future revisit you and find out the next range of brilliant things you've been doing. But let's just go around and see if there's anybody who wants to add anything or talk about anything that we haven't covered yet. So Vanessa, was there anything else that has come up on the chat or that you wanted to ask?
No, not any questions really, just my own reflections, working in a mental health trust. I think that kind of pastoral care element, and as you say, the mental health element can't be underestimated. When we international nurses, the amount of energy and resource. We've got a brilliant recruitment and retention lead who did a massive amount of pastoral care work. And I think, as you say, that can't be underestimated. And me being able to connect people into the community with people who are, like-minded, who, people can relate to, and then they don't, feel alone and feel like they've got that sense of belonging. I don't think you can overestimate the importance of that, really. So I think for me, that's a strong message. I think the message about allyship as well is always really important, isn't it? And I know we have the Jabali network as well. I don't know if it was Oliver or one of the other guests who was saying, even to have that kind of tap on the shoulder to say you can do it. And I know you've talked about that tonight as well. And I think that's really important. So I think there's just lots of really important messages in tonight's chat, and I hope people are watching it and getting something from it, and we'll get in touch with you as well. And yeah, as Nicky says, be great to have you all back again, because I've just been listening. I haven't said much tonight, but there's been lots to listen to, hasn't there? So yeah, be great to have you back on again. Thank you.
Thank you,
Oliver,
Vanessa.
Anything you wanted to say before we finish up, Oliver?
I just want to actually clarify that, like, I'm not the one and only. I'm the one, and there will be more who will be coming up to this stage. So I think watch this space as we started to kind of like, no, not started, as we continue to kind of like support our community, not again just a Filipino community, but like our global majority community, to kind of like get into the ladder that we can actually achieve to. So I think my ask is, the association, the PNA UK association, is actually it's a free membership. We don't charge anything. We try to actually get the money from our sponsors. So I think, like, if there's any sponsor who wants to support on the work that we do, please, let us know. But nonetheless, because like most of our work is to kind of like provide this to our members, it's a good way. It's a good feeling, I have to say, doing all these things. And first, like, I think I'll end it up on I know my colleagues will say, but I just want to say thank you, Nicky, thank you, Vanessa, with like giving us this platform, because like it's very rare for us to actually have this type of platform. But like when it was asked, I thought like, oh yes, why not? So thank you so much.
I think you'll start your own podcast, to be honest. I think
Bad idea.
I don't have the time.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Who's next? Who wants to leave us with a thought?
Right. Shall I go next? Just following on from what Oliver said when he asked for sponsors to contact us. My bit would be for other NHS trusts or PCNs or primary care trust, and even private companies or social care services. If you want to tap into PNA UK, please feel free to get in touch with us and improve your retention. You focus so much on recruiting people from all parts of the globe and not looking after them properly. That's why they keep on leaving.
Yeah.
Them off.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Nicky and Vanessa, for having us tonight.
It's been an absolute riot and a pleasure. Cielito.
Yeah, just to tap onto Oliver and Dennis, in addition to the community work that we do, we are, in part of the retention, we are academic, we are researchers, we are clinically experts or learners in our fields. We got a lot to share. Now, we are recruited as nurses, but we became more, and that's because of a good retention. And the only way to do that is through the community. But because of what we offer, there are many experts, colleagues within PNA UK that can support inside and out the healthcare sector.
What a fantastic note to finish on. Thank you very much to everybody. Next week, we're looking, and surprisingly, a topic that kind of covers on. We've got Luca Bernardi and Dr. Joe Daniels talking about politics, mental health and COVID. So very nicely dovetailing there. Thank you very much to our guests tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you guys for watching as well. All the best. Good night. Good night all.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Nice.